In this video, I'm going to be powder coating this intake manifold red using the Harbor Freight powder coater. I'm pretty excited to see what it'll look like. I've got everything masked off that I don't want the powder on, and I've already started just playing with it a little bit, figuring out some of the settings that I need, and it's starting to really lay on there nicely. So on each of these arms, it looks really nice, and also on the face back here, it really is a great pattern, but up here on the top, if I were to do it again, I'd make it a little bit thicker. It still has plenty of color, but I think it was just a bit too thin. It started to get a little bit splotchy, and then of course, in this corner over here, that's where it rubbed off. Now, I mean, really it's not a huge deal. That'll be kind of where you look at it too, but I mean, there's not much I can do about that. I would have been a little bit more careful carrying it up here, but I can't do anything about it now. But I think we're ready to take off all the pieces of masking tape. A lot of people will use like a high temperature masking tape, but as you can see, this is completely normal masking tape you get from like the hardware store, and it does a great job because all it's doing is keeping the powder off. Whenever you're at the powder stage, there's no heat. So it just needs to keep the powder off, and then once you warm it up, at that point, it's not gonna flow too much in, and I don't understand why you would use the high temperature masking tape, because at that point it still deforms whenever you heat it up. Yeah, as you can see, normal masking tape, it doesn't catch on fire at 350. That's as high as you need to go temperature wise, and it does a great job. Now we'll peel off the one underneath it. I'm probably also gonna sand this because there's some leftover gasket on it. On the bottom here, it really does look nice. I'm happy with it. It's a thicker coating. I think one of the reasons why here on the bottom, like on the face, is why it's a little thin and splotchy is because it was hanging like this, where that's on the bottom. It's a little bit harder to see, and I think that's why it was just harder to reach, so I couldn't get quite as well coverage. I tried painting this same manifold red before, just with spray paint, and it was not very good. It couldn't take the heat very well, even though the intake doesn't get too hot. It just started flaking, it didn't stick too well to the metal. This powder coat, really, it just fuses to the steel and the aluminum, and it does a great job. It's gonna be a lot more durable. I think there's definitely a learning curve to using the powder coating gun. It seemed to come out sometimes in like big blobs. That's where I was having a lot of problems. It would make the coating uneven, and I'd kind of have to wipe some of it off. It was getting kind of tricky. I'm not exactly sure why. My air pressure was pretty low. I wasn't using it too much, and then sometimes it would be working fine, and then it would just throw out the blobs. I think the way that the static electricity works, and just the way that the powder gets applied, these sharper corners here are really hard to get the powder into. I was watching some tutorials, and they were explaining that, and then as I go through and do it, I definitely noticed that as I was going on these sharp corners, it's a lot harder to get the powder in there. So every time I do some kind of powder coating, I learn more on it. So I'm really excited how this turned out, and powder coating is extremely durable, and there's a lot of different color options. I got this red from Harbor Freight. I think it was like $7 for the bottle, which is a really good price compared to other places that sell it, like Eastwood. It's definitely a lot more, but they have a much larger color selection. You can get like sparkle red, sparkle blue, and it's just, the possibilities are endless for what they have for sale. Whenever you're powder coating it, try to keep the gun a distance away from it, because if it gets too close, it'll arc, and it'll kind of make a spot on the powder where it's tricky to cover it again, and it's just kind of startling. I don't think it's great to have the arcs. Probably not a huge deal, but it's just a good rule of thumb to keep it a good distance away from your part. And while your foot's on the pedal, while everything's energized, you don't want to touch the electrode on the tip of the powder coating gun, or just try not to touch it in general. It will shock you. When you take it outside, you can really see the color in the sun. You can also see some of the imperfections, of course, like that corner, and then some of the thinness of the paint up here, but for the most part, this looks really good. So overall, I think this turned out really good, and there's a learning curve to everything. I think this is a great starting machine, and I got some really good results out of it. So I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.